welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a Kickstarter preview of Crown of Ash, a game I've been able to play a few times now that is currently running over on Kickstarter. I believe there's a few days left at the point you're watching this video, and I want to walk you through what I find interesting about it, where it's worked really well, and how the mechanics actually function and flow. You see, this is going to be a unique deck building style area control game with a small footprint and a pretty accessible approach. You have some worker placement as you go to different regions to try to gather resources to hire and recruit the units that you're going to be using either to battle and take control of areas that will be scoring you victory points, or to defend regions across the board to get end of round victory points depending on how many of those different areas you control. So across the board here, we have our personal player boards with a unique set of battle cards. We have our workers, which are going to be used to take actions. We're going to get 4 actions per round. There's going to be an entire of 4 rounds. So we're talking a total of 16 actions across the course of the game. We have a marketplace for our troops, a marketplace for our resource towers. We have a few different regions on the board here, all of which are regions that you can actually conquer and control. I'm set up for a 2-player game here, but I think it plays best at 3 or 4 as you stretch the amount of different interactions there are happening across the tableau. Now, at 2 players, the objective of the game is really to gather resources, fight and squabble for control of this center region if you can, and then hold it as long as you're able to. You see, you're going to be scoring victory points from a variety of sources. 1, from placing down brand new buildings. 2, from having sets or units that match a specific unique scoring card that you have. One of these cards here. Like white and black, and you'll score victory points at the end of every single round as you score based off the different towers that you have control of, with the center region, of course, being the most valuable location. As you can see later on in the game, the points go up and up. So what's the core aspect of Crown of Ash? Where does it start to stand out in the realm of board games that exist? Well, the combination of worker placement along with a bit of deck building and area control is done very well here. You see, there's 4 core actions that I can take on my turn. I can gather resources. It's where I play down into a region that either I or my opponent controls, one of these little squares. I'll get the resources that are in the primary circle. My opponent, if they control that region, will get the resources that are on the banner next to them, a little bonus kickback for someone else going to your spot, and the worker will stay in that location. So this is how you start getting what you need in order to hire new troops and get more and more people out onto the board. The more beefy troops are going to require more and more resources, like this one here, costs 5 yellow, 3 white, and 2 black. But once you have those troops in your stockpile, they'll remain in your stockpile until you do something like place them down as a defender, meaning that they'll really only come back into your hand if you make an active choice or if someone defeats you in battle. Second thing I could do is build a structure. Building a structure is right down here underneath where my card is. This is where I'm going to take one of these little squares, score victory points based off of the number of them that are in the location, and plop that right down on top of the resource generating system. Now, this can help if you want to be able to play on your own tableau, gain more resources, but it's also an excellent way of scoring points throughout the course of the middle of the game. Rebuilding or continuing to build different spires not only gets more resources out into the tableau, you gain those resources the moment you place it down, but you also change up the battlefield and score additional points depending on how tall that stack is. So the more players you have, the more things get built, the more victory points you're fighting over both at the beginning and the end of the round. The third thing we can do, we can initiate combat. This is where the game starts to get interesting because you're mixing up this Euro-style resource generation, resource collection with a little bit of area control. You see, if I wanted to take over this blue region here, the blue player already has his defenders out onto the tableau. We have a 1 and a 1. 2 smaller defenders, pretty easy to beat. Now, each of us has a unique deck of cards. These cards are going to have win and loss conditions along with a strength modifier. Now, this could be rolling dice, this could be gaining resources, this could give you victory points if you win, or victory points if you lose. You never quite know what someone's looking for. Maybe the blue player doesn't really care about this fight. He'd rather score some victory points or get some coins that can be used as wild resources and move on with his life. But There's also a chance that I really want it. I've got a few stronger units here, and after I win this battle, I get to place them down and control this potentially for the rest of the game. We're each going to play one hidden card. I'm going to attach any units that I want to fight in this battle. Those units will stay in this location after the battle's resolved, and we'll see where our numbers lie. The winner taking whatever benefits they get, and the loser leaving the region, and also taking whatever benefits they get. This is an interesting little puzzle because you want to control different regions, but there's also a benefit to giving up certain areas of control if you don't think you're going to be able to hold them for a long time, or if you want to use your units for other battles in the tableau, because once your units are out, they're out. If your units are working as defenders, you don't have them to initiate another attack in a different region. I might have spent all of my resources buying this very gruely, very beefy boy, but if he's only used to defend one single region, I can't, for instance, use him to go up here and fight the Citadel, where we have the Night Ruler. So there's a give and take there. Sometimes you want to control a region, sometimes your units are better used taking a vast array of areas or fighting for more valuable locations. You'll have to make that judgment call yourself. So, fighting's the third action you can do. You also have the ability to refresh your combat cards. This is going to be an action where you just place down in the center here, you get all your combat cards back up into your hand. It's a good way to reset the deck if you've already played some of your more valuable cards or you expect a battle is going to happen very soon, like you're defending, for instance, the Citadel. Along with that, you could go up into this region here just to collect a generic point, and the battle zone here in the Citadel, unlike the other locations on the tableau, which are limited, is unlimited. There is a benefit. If you're the first to go, you can get a little bit of a kickback, but at a certain point, everyone can kind of pile in because the Citadel will be an area that's going to be drawing a lot of attention and scoring a lot of points, and that's going to stack on top of each other. However, once you've laid your cards down into the Citadel, there's no way to change or adapt what you already have there. So if you put in a strong force, everyone will have to beat a strong force to kick you out. But if you put in a weak force, it'll probably change hands before the end of the round. The game's going to continue like that, everyone taking 4 actions, and on their turn, if they'd like, purchasing a card from the marketplace up here by spending the resources that they need. After you purchase a card, that'll cycle into your hand. Those cards will then be used in future battles or establishing new defenses, and the game will play for 4 actions across 4 total rounds. Once the game comes to an end, you'll resolve any last-minute scoring objectives you have, like the resource cubes you have left on your tableau, or the specific colored cards that you are hunting for. You want units that match up. You'll score more points depending on how many of them you have in your controlled regions that have the same or matching color type to the cards that you're preferable to. And of course, you'll score extra endgame victory points if you control the Citadel. The last round is a total of 7 victory points, which is a substantial amount in a game like this. Like I said, I really like this at the 3 and 4 player count. I like when there's a lot more movement happening on the board than I typically saw at 2 players. I want to see these towers get really high and stack up. I want to see there being a changing of the ropes and a changing of the guard and really a squabble for different positioning as you move into that last round. I found that in some of my gameplays, if someone had taken over the Citadel in a 2-player game, they really held strong to that. Whereas in a 3 or 4 player game, what I've seen is that you actually have more turnover there, and it's not always with the most valuable troops, because sometimes they're occupying other regions across the board. If you see an opening, you tend to hop in and take it. That's the core premise here. That's what's happening in Crown of Ash. There is a little bit of flavor text that I want to go over, but outside of that, let me know if you have any questions. This is a cool, very, very interesting game. It's one that drew Shira's attention initially, and I think she was 100% 100% right on this. I'm now on board with the Crown of Ash. I think it's doing some stuff unique in the space. I like the combination of worker placement with a little bit of area control. I find that mechanic system very unique. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. The components, even in the prototype that I have here, are very, very well made, and I'm excited to see that it's funded over on Kickstarter. I hope the publisher does very well. I hope they continue producing games. So, this has caught your attention. Feel free to follow the link down below, swing over to the Kickstarter, and back the project. But, the most important part, a bit of flavor text. For decades, the kingdom was ruled over by the watchful eye of the king from his central citadel. His lords maintained the outer lands in a peaceful partnership, keeping stability and prosperity within the realm. As the popularity of the lords grew, so did their power. The king became envious and bitter, With every report of their success, he imagined their greedy hands reaching farther for his crown. The idea of it consumed him, poisoning every thought, shadowing every pleasure, until finally he vowed to bring an end to the coalition. With a network of spies and undesirables, he turned the lords against each other. Before long, war swept across the kingdom, the destruction greater than the king had ever anticipated. With embers in his eyes, he watched from the great tower as the land burned to ash and destruction spread. The lords were left to ruin. Desperate, the lords met to discuss a truce. Under their tattered tents, the sour wine flowed, and talk turned to the start of the war. The king's treachery was uncovered. It was too late for them to take revenge. Their treasuries were emptied and their armies decimated. Instead, to give the land time to heal, they turned to the forbidden arcane arts. An alchemist was called to prepare a vial made into an ancient recipe. It promised to give the lords a silent death-like slumber for 100 long years. Once they returned, the kingdom would be made anew. As each took their drink and fell into the sleep, the true effects of the vial revealed itself. The king's last betrayal. It gave them nightmarish dreams and pain so torturous that their minds were turned into torment. When they finally woke, once benevolent lords were gone, replaced by violent creatures in hideous forms, with one single desire, to take the land for themselves. Unbeknownst to the king, the vial had given them the dark knowledge, long-forgotten alchemy that would allow them to raise armies from the dead, bringing new life to the buried corpses of the First War and marching them into the Second. They would rebuild the strongholds of the kingdom and drain the lands to feed their power. The Citadel awaited them. So that's who you are. Nightmarish, necromantic creatures fighting to take control of this central spire here in the middle. And whoever is able to dominate the region, score the most victory points, have the most resources, get the most troops out onto the board, and of course conquer the most areas by the end of the game will be declared the new High King as you topple and tear down the throne in the center. So, thank you for watching, thank you for being here. Let me know if you have any questions. Whatever the case, though, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. I'll see you next time. Bye.